Two captains and a warden conspired together to try to get rid of another captain. Shortly after that incident, the two captains themselves falsified documents on use of force reports and had a team of officers falsify documents. They were all federally indicted in Fort Myers, Florida by a grand jury. The warden was terminated from his position. Hi, I'm Gary York, True Prison Stories. Thank you for watching. And today I'm going to talk about a subject that offends a lot of people. It's called corruption and abuse of power. And today we're not going to talk about frontline incidents. We're going to talk about supervisory incidents and how they can hinder your agency and put fear into the honest officers who are afraid to come forward and report incidents for fear of retaliation. We have a moral obligation to protect our honest, hard-working officers, and we have the obligation to protect their reputation. So, if we're having misconduct, corruption, abuse of power, however you want to put it, at the supervisory level, how in the world is our front line even going to have a chance to survive? How are you going to discipline frontline officers when you yourselves are conducting illegal activities? Abuse of power and corruption sets us behind in our profession. And it all starts with the administration. The administration has to be honest, and they have to have intestinal fortitude and integrity, or we've already lost the battle. Now, if some of you are going to be offended about talking about this, then you're the ones that need to hear this the most. We cannot continue to pretend like these things don't happen. It does not happen frequently, but it does happen. Look at all the times we read about incidents concerning supervisors. Just recently there was an article out about a warden with misconduct, just this week. So it does happen. We can't hide from it. You can't bury your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't happen. Okay? Corruption and power do not mix. We do not want that within our prison society, our professional prison society. We have too many hard-working men and women that are counting on us to set the reputation right. And those of you who are tainting the image of the honest officers need to go. Just that simple. Let me tell you a story. I had an investigation assigned at Charlotte Correctional Institution alleging that a captain was just destroying documents just to stay away from work and not have to do his daily duties. So it's an administrative investigation at this time. I drive down to Charlotte Correctional Institution and I meet with the warden at Charlotte Correctional Institution, as we do as a courtesy, to say, hello, I'm here to investigate Captain so-and-so. I see that you are the complainant, and I see that the two captains on the other shifts are also witnesses to this. And he said, yes, Inspector, let me just tell you something off the record, please. Well, come on. You're talking to a prison inspector. If you're going to tell me something that's wrong or illegal, I cannot have it off the record. So I told him that. He said, well, I'm going to tell you anyway, because you're a good guy. So I'm already being manipulated by this warden. I'm a good guy. I'm going to tell you anyway. I know it'll be between us. I've got to get rid of this captain. This captain has to go. Well, from being in the prison system for a number of years already, and some of my colleagues as well, we were actually surprised about the allegation to begin with, because this captain, as far as we knew, was always an honest man who did the right thing. He may not have been as fast and as sharp and as witty as the other two captains, but we'll soon learn why those other two captains were sharp and witty in the wrong way. And they wanted to set him up to get rid of him because he did not fit the mold that they wanted at that prison. The warden wanted supervisors that when he said this is going to be left the way it is, there's no need to tell anybody, that's the way he wanted it to stay. And this captain was not that way. He wasn't bred that way. He was honest, and he knew by the rules of the department that by 10 a.m. every morning, all incidents had to be reported to the Inspector General's office, and he was doing just that. And the warden didn't like it, neither did his two captains, the other two captains. So, in the end of the investigation, there was nothing that could substantiate this captain's wrongdoing. We even had suspicion that the other two captains were taking his paperwork when he was at home off shift and destroying it themselves. Because the captain told me in a taped interview that he does his work, but sometimes he comes back and he's missing things. And all the captains on each shift share the same captain's office. So, you get off your shift as a captain, you come in, the next captain takes over. Gosh, you hope your co-workers are honest and have integrity, because you're counting on them to back you up, not set you up. And that was the case in this incident. Unfortunately, there was not enough evidence anywhere that we could pin that they were setting him up. So it was a suspicion, so you can't say it happened. Time goes on, and we learn that the warden had taken state funds and had the purchasing agent at the prison cut him checks and money, and he would go purchase personal web belts, personal weapon, and personal holsters for a personal gun that he used off duty, not on duty. We also learned that he allowed a couple of fathers from the prison motorcycle ministry, which is a good thing now. There's nothing wrong with them. It's good to have motorcycle ministries talking to the inmates. We want them to have a second chance, of course. But he would allow one of the fathers, especially, who was very in touch with the Harley-Davidson company here in Florida. And guess what? Our warden was a big motorcycle fan and a big Harley-Davidson fan. So that father was allowed to bring in steak dinners and have a separate room to meet with his son, visit with him, and feed his son steak and potato and cheesecake for dessert. Some of you may say, well, what's wrong with that? Give the guy a break. Well, what's wrong with that is you're bringing contraband into the prison, number one. Number two, you are not giving it to all the inmates. This inmate gets preferential treatment for what? All the other inmates now don't get that treatment, and they know what goes on. They've learned. They've figured it out. I learned from an inmate barber at Charlotte a lot of things when he was cutting my hair. Yes, I allowed the inmate barbers to cut my hair, and while they're cutting my hair, I just kept my mouth shut and let them go. And they would tell a lot of things that are going on inside the prison. You know, barbers like to talk. Anyway, we also learned that the motorcycle ministry had come to that prison on a weekend, and they had some paratrooper friends, and the warden approved for a plane to fly over the prison and let one of the prison ministry people paratroop right on in to the prison grounds inside the compound. What's wrong with that, you say? The inmates got some entertainment, it's good for them. Yes, if it was pre-approved. Again, how do we know what he brought into that compound? He wasn't searched up in the air before he jumped out of the aircraft. We have a possible contraband issue, we have a possible escape paraphernalia issue, we have all things that could have gone wrong with that. But this is the type of warden he was. Power. He had power because he was a warden, and he abused his power, and we cannot let that happen. Another thing that really bothered me about this warden is nothing was wrong in his prison ever. Now, we don't have a drug problem here. I said, well, sir, I'm going to go in and investigate this case because I'm going to tell you every jail and every prison in the United States has some amount of drugs somewhere smuggled in, taken from the infirmary, snuck out of the infirmary by an inmate when the nurse wasn't looking. Something. There's drugs in every prison and jail in this country. You have to face that fact. Stop trying to hide and be embarrassed. If I was a warden, I would say, get in there, investigate everything you can, clean this place up, please. If there's drugs coming in, I want to know who's bringing them in, I want to catch them, and I want them prosecuted. Those weren't the answers I was getting from this warden. Very disturbing. Anyway, I investigated those three allegations. They were all substantiated on the warden, and he was terminated. But before he had terminated, see, he had set up this little group of 2 captains, 2 sergeants, and 6 officers. The honest officers told me they were nicknamed the Family. They named themselves the Family on their own. And the warden thought he was the Godfather. This is true story, folks. And these 10 would go around and abuse inmates, beat inmates, and falsify use of force reports. Until the day came when they'd beaten an inmate too long, too much, too many days in a row. For 5 days, this group of 10, these 2 captains, 2 sergeants, and 6 officers, on the day shift, on the afternoon shift and the midnight shift, took turns. They took turns beating this inmate. The inmate was a devil worshiper. He had 666 tattooed on his back. He was a double murderer, and he had bitten an officer. So this was their revenge. But as you know, we need to do what we need to do when he bites the officer and take him down. We need to take him back to court. Even though he was in for life, it wouldn't have done any good. But when you start to take revenge out and take law into your own hands, this is what happens. It's not worth it, number one. Number two, it's deadly wrong. So over a 5-day period, they beat him. They put his food trays through the food slot and pushed the food on the floor and made him eat the food off the floor. And they beat him over a 5-day period, and then he had to be moved to a different dorm, and he was strapped down naked by these officers, placed in 4-point straps. He was 4-pointed, both legs, ankles, and hands and arms, naked to a metal bed with no mattress. And they continued to beat him. One of the captains stood on him, pulled out his chest hairs, and says, "Ooh, that's got to hurt." The inmate orderly said, "Can I give him some water, boss? Let me at least give him some water." He says, "Hell no, he doesn't deserve any water." The inmate died that night. When that happened, all panic broke loose. A secret society meeting was held by the 2 captains. Their protective guardian, the warden, was already gone for his wrongdoings, and they were right in the middle of exchanging wardens. We got rid of the corrupt warden. Now another warden was coming in, but he's not there yet, so we had an assistant warden there who was honest, who later testified on behalf of these things. And guess what? They couldn't go to him for help because they knew he was an honest assistant warden, and he would not play those games. He was caught in the trap between the warden and the frontline supervisors. Which way did he go? He didn't know which way to go. In the end, folks, to make a long story short, a long investigation. I was assigned this investigation also. The inmate, when I walked in, had blood coming out the side of his mouth. He was bruised from head to toe, and he was dead in 4-point restraints. Now, folks, the inmate did not put himself in those 4-point restraints, okay? Sorry, the truth hurts, but we cannot hide these things that happen behind the prison walls. That's why we have to stop them. We must stop these type of incidents. Long story short, everybody got together. They met at one of the officers' homes. They planned out everything. They did their use of force reports in a panic, from the beginning to the end when the inmate got there on the first day, because he was transferred from Zephyr Hills Correctional Institution to Charlotte Correctional Institution after he bit an officer at Zephyr Hills. The shift captain from Zephyr Hills called the shift captain at Charlotte as they were transporting the inmate, said, "Hey, he bit one of my officers, take care of him." And the captain over there says, "Don't worry, we got it. We got you covered." This is how the inmate ended up dead. Not a good inmate. Very bad fellow. I can't say anything good about the inmate, but this is just totally wrong on all sides. All sides. After interviewing everyone, days later, because we processed the crime scene, we did the autopsy, we took photos, all those things. After interviewing all the officers, they all stuck with the same story. But then I get a phone call. "Inspector York, I can't sleep at night. Can you please talk to me? I jumped in the state vehicle and drove from Tampa for an hour and 45 minutes back to Charlotte County. I knew this guy was about to tell the truth. And this officer told the truth, and then another one came forward, and another came forward. And just as we were about to get the fourth officer to come forward and tell the truth, he was stopped by the two captains and went back on that side. So now we have 8 sticking with a story, and 7 sticking with a story, and 3 coming on the side of truth. They were all indicted by a federal grand jury. The 3 officers testified on what really happened. 2 nurses testified on what happened, but we lost 8 civilian staff because nurses had seen what went on and did not report it. So we lost nursing staff in that case. We also lost 3 officers who were too scared to report it. You know, I hated to see them go. It wasn't my call. It's not the Inspector General's call on who goes. It's our legal department, it's the new warden, and it's the Secretary of Corrections who makes the final call. Those 3 entities, not the inspectors, as many people think. Those 3 officers were scared of fear and retaliation, so they did not report the beatings. They were not part of the group of the family, the 10 officers, the 10 corrupt officers. So see what this does? It places fear and intimidation in everyone who is honest. It destroys our honest officers. It scares them. And you know what? Stand up to these bullies, folks. These are the bullies of corrections. Stand up to them, report them, and turn them in, and let's get rid of these bullies. In the end, the jury acquitted the 7 officers, even with the testimony of 2 nurses and 3 officers who told them everything. They said they just could not convict officers on a devil-worshipping, double homicide murderer. But they did lose their certifications for life. No longer could be correctional officers or policemen ever again. And the 3 who told everything ended up with 5 years each federal probation. So I don't know what to tell you about that, but I'm going to tell you right now, honesty is the best policy. But you know what? It should never even get to that point. Forget about even getting as far as these officers did. Don't ruin your career over this mess. Don't try to be a tough guy and have a little gang. We're professional correctional officers. We're not gang members. We're not bullies. And if you're doing it, we're going to look for you and we're going to get rid of you, because I know too many hard-working, honest men and women who are making this a career or a profession or a job, whatever you want to call it. And they're proud of it. And you need to stop ruining and tainting their image right now. I'll get off my high horse. Another true prison story. And let's fix it so that everyone can work together and make this profession a great profession. We need more training across the country in ethics, and we need more training in inmate manipulation, and we need strong consequences for misconduct, and that needs to stay steady and true for both sides, frontline officers and supervisors. If you decide you want to do something criminal, you want to cover up something, you want to hide something, you need to go find another profession. Start your own business and be corrupt in your own business. Thank you for watching. If you like this YouTube, please subscribe. Gary York, True Prison Story.